In the next One Piece, impels down most dangerous trap. A fake food vendor who sells meat, but the meat actually has rat traps in them. So when you try to grab them, it snaps.
I love that you didn't go for the food is poisoned.
No, no, that's too obvious.
Magellan is dressed up as a food vendor. I am not the warden. I am hot dog salesman, yeah.
He's got like a really big, like purple or orange mustache, like a really fake looking mustache.
King of the Wetness gonna take you down, gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now. King of the Wetness gonna take you down, gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now. We've got a multi-act season, 1, 2, 3. So come aboard to brave this sea. Supernovas and mystery. Warlords, wars, and tragedy. King of the Wetness gonna take you down. Gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now.
Celestial dragons, lowest of low. Overwhelming enemies, it's time to go. Luffy's gonna fight for his big bro, so now it's time to start the show. Hello, fellow members of Paradise Hidden in Hell, and welcome to another episode of King of the What Now?
Excuse me, that's gay paradise?
Oh, I see, of course, yes. No straights allowed, I assume, or...
Is it possible to meet Ivankov and remain straight? In the One Piece universe, do you think that's a possibility?
Excellent discussion question we'll get to later in the episode. This is episode 103 of the podcast, or episode 8 of the Summit War Saga. Strange that it's the Summit War Saga, and yet we haven't seen a war story yet. Interesting, very interesting. I'm your host, Joel, longtime fan of the series, and also, I just got out of a 10-hour surgery and I am hungry. Bring me meat! Bring me meat! We went in slightly different directions, but that's okay. Who are you?
I'm Kat, I'm the ghost of the show, and I am a fantastic weirdo with needles for fingers. Come here, let me give you a little jabby jab.
Can I get a hee-haw in chat?
Hee-haw!
Excellent. That's the energy we're bringing to this episode.
I'm too tired for the podcast. I'm leaving. I'm just kidding.
You really got me. You had me going. Before we get into the episode, it's time for our favorite segment, Chatting with the Hosts. Catherine, have you been doing anything that you want to shout out?
Nope.
Really? Okay, that's right.
We finished ReZero, and that was a season finale.
I liked it a lot, but I think as we mentioned before, I want to go back and rewatch season 2 in its entirety just so that I can remember all of the different moving pieces.
I feel like, and I'll talk about Promised Neverland too, but I feel like ReZero had a similar problem to Promised Neverland, where the first season was very tight and there were like clear problems to solve. And this season kind of went all over the place. And it still had specific problems he was trying to solve, but it seemed to lose track of those threads so often, but that by the time they actually solved them, I was like, oh yeah, we were supposed to be doing this.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't really the place where we go like point by point into plot details. Maybe we could do like a quick, not bonus, but extra episode where we talk about ReZero. But what I didn't quite get is that Emilia had to do the 3 trials, but Subaru did the 3 trials on his own because things happened and like that didn't count. I don't understand. We need to go back and I want to rewatch it or whatever.
Subaru did the 3 trials because it's the only way he could talk to Echidna.
But solving the 3 trials fixes the problem.
Only if you're the special person.
But why? Like,
yeah, you're right. This
isn't the place to discuss it. I'm just saying that's the kind of thing that confuses me. Like, I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to make sure that not everyone died, because that's what ReZero is all about, is how can you get to the happy ending. But I don't fully understand why certain characters did the things that they did.
Yeah. We also finished season 2 of The Promised Neverland, and Joel was bored of season 2 of Promised Neverland about 3 episodes in. He was like, I don't want to watch this.
I didn't think we were going to watch the second season because it just, I had no expectations. I was bored by the first episode of season 2.
Yeah. So I was like, no, we can give it a chance. This could still be interesting. I still like Emma. And the season finale came and peed in my mouth. So we're done. with that.
Very specific imagery there.
You can censor
no, I'm
that
not going to. I'm keeping it in there.
But imagine the censor sound. It in my back, right? Like, that's funny.
That is pretty funny. Okay, I'll have to see which one sounds better side by side. But okay, so there's a lot of video essays out there about Promised Neverland. I know Mother's Basement has done at least 2. I know Explanation Point has come out with 1. But even if you are anime only, there's content from the manga that was cut, and a lot of people seem to agree that it was a really good arc that was cut. But even if you're anime only, the ending still feels bad and rushed and shoddy. And so even if the story was different than the manga, it's still badly told. And it doesn't look like they're going to get a season 3 the way that they did that last episode, and so kind of good riddance in a sense. Let's see Promised Neverland Brotherhood in a couple of years, and I'll watch that because it sounds like the actual story is really interesting.
The promised there was a land. And to be clear, the manga, a lot of people had problems with the way it ended, and from what I've read, the problems were the same, but they were compounded in the anime because the anime rushed a lot of what was already annoying about the finale in the manga.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense.
That's kind of how I felt about that. I've been doing a book club with one of my friends.
Okay.
And that's been pretty cool.
What are you reading?
Well, I was trying to finish To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and I've officially decided to give up.
Oh, you DNR'd it. Okay.
I am DNFing it. Maybe I'll go back and try again, but, some people just aren't meant for sci-fi, and that's okay. Aren't meant to write sci-fi, and that's okay.
Stay in your lanes. You know who you are. Okay.
The look on Joel's face made me feel like maybe I had been a bit mean. Well, all I was trying to say was there's a lot of problems with this book, and nothing about the setting is particularly creative or unique, and there are other versions of the story that have been told better, and I would rather just read the better versions.
Okay. Have you read a better version of this story specifically?
No, I have not, but all of the people who were upset about this book on Reddit have recommended some better versions that I am going to read.
So yeah, maybe that could be one of your famous Catherine promises. By episode 120 of the podcast, you'll have a review of one of those other books.
Yeah, we've been watching more Black Clover. Yay, Black Clover. It's
Hooray!
Still good. I still like Asta. He's just, little chibista.
You still like that mysterious sexy man with the mask whose name you don't know.
Him's got the teeth.
He uses the ash trap magic, which is really cool. I do think it's interesting. Some stories will say, like, yes, there are 5 elements: light, water, fire, steel, and wood. And then someone shows up and they use a spell, and you're like, that doesn't feel like any of those 5 elements you mentioned earlier. And they're like, oh, there's secret 6th category, which means other. And I appreciate that Black Clover has never once tried to categorize things. You can have whatever magic you want. You could have World Tree magic. What the heck even is that? You can have anti-magic. You'd have wind magic. You could have creation magic.
Crystal magic.
And so when this guy showed up, and he used magic, and they're like, oh, that's ash magic. Like, that didn't ruin any preconceived notions, or it didn't have me going like, is that like a subset of fire? Who cares? It's ash. It's awesome. It's cool. All right. I have a couple of things to shout out. They're all YouTube because that's where I spend most of my time. On our previous episode, I mentioned that I was watching the Game Grumps playthrough of Danganronpa 1, and they have not yet played any of the later games, and I was actually kind of interested in the story. So Jazzy Guns is a person on YouTube, and I've been following her for all of the Danganronpa 2, Ultra Despair Girls, and 3. I don't think at this moment she's completed 3, but whatever, man. I've grown into the habit of watching her, so I'll patiently wait for her to upload more episodes. I also watched the anime, and boy, even if the world of Danganronpa is not my thing and is a little weird, there's characters who literally embody quote-unquote ultimate despair, and like the only thing they want is for everyone to hurt each other, even though that doesn't make any sense for like an actual person to have those desires. But even though there's a lot of weirdness in the writing, I think that the ending of the anime was actually really solid, and it helped sell me on this world, and it helped me feel like all of the different plot threads from the 3 different stories were actually interwoven with each other. So I'd recommend it, but do keep in mind that it is classified as horror, and in some places, they don't show the horror, but there is one scene that made me go, no, and so if you're sensitive to things, especially, let's say, eyes, there's a scene, you might want to skip it.
I appreciate you not telling me about that scene. I was about to be like, oh, you never mentioned... That's why. I don't like eye stuff.
If you get to the scene where someone is cooking curry, just skip ahead like 30 seconds, you're fine.
There is also, in some of the games, some sexual abuse discussion that's pretty bad. Even just, like, tangentially getting it from Joel, I was like, the writer of this game just wanted to hurt girls. So, you know, if you're sensitive to that, maybe skip it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is most prominent in Ultra Despair Girls, I would say is the only one that really crosses the line. And it kind of makes sense because, like I said, there's a character who wants other characters to just feel, like, terribly depressed, and so they explicitly look for victims of different types of violence. And so there is a sexual abuse survivor, there's one who's a physical abuse survivor, and the other two are, like, a little harder to define, but they've all been hurt. And it's a little hard to watch, but sometimes it's also a great show. There's the ultimate program manager is this Jotaro-looking bodybuilder dude who's always yelling about needing to take a shit because in his mind, the three most important things are a good sleep schedule, healthy eating, and taking lots of shits.
Oh, Lord.
He eventually, slight spoilers, gets turned into a robot who dispenses cola from one of his eyes. The other eye dispenses tea, and he is voiced by Frankie's voice actor in the English, and that's incredible.
Had to have been on purpose.
Had to have been.
Yeah. Also, I gotta ask.
Yeah.
Why did you pronounce Jotaro that way?
What'd I say?
Jotaro.
Yeah, Jotaro, whatever, man. He's the least interesting JoJo out there, so... No, I'm kidding. Giorno's right there.
I was gonna say, Giorno is right there. I almost said Kakyoin is right there.
Yeah, he's not a JoJo.
He's not a JoJo, but he is there.
Yeah, he exists. Okay, we are spending a lot of time on this chatting with the host thing. There's a YouTube video game rap artist named Cam Steady. He has done several that have been rattling in my head all week. He has one that's a Pokemon trainer cypher. He has one that is an Eevee cypher, so everyone does their own verse about a different evolution. And recently they came out with an Among Us Airship collaboration, and the song itself is good, but if you watch till the ending nails it out of the park. I love that video. I'm going to be watching it a lot in the future. And then lastly, Aunty Donna. We've shouted them out before. They have a Netflix show that came out fairly recently, Aunty Donna's Big Ol' House of Fun. But they've been on YouTube for many years now, and I've been sporadically looking through their old videos and looking at them. There are two that I'd highly recommend. I think Kat would agree with these recommendations. Chuffed, which is a dad song. There's nothing inappropriate. There's no swearing or anything. It's just a family-friendly rap song. And then they have another one called Chop Chop, which is about two Italian men instructing a dance party on how to do a dance called the Chop Chop. And the thing that's amazing about Aunty Donna, if you analyze their comedy, they set up a really obvious joke, and then the punchline is almost never where you think it's going to go. And then they somehow manage to magnificently circle back to the original joke after they've distracted you with this other thing. It's just, there's no perfect punchline. It's just like 4 or 5 punchlines in a row to like tangential jokes that are all related.
Yes.
It's great.
Yes, absolutely.
Kat, do you have a favorite Aunty Donna sketch? It can be one of the ones that I've already mentioned.
I mean, I'm still really attached to Morning Brown.
Morning Brown and Everything is a Drum. The first 2 episodes of their Netflix show start with a little musical number, and they're amazing and great. And that's been your mic test. No, that's been Chatting with the Hosts. Let's get back to the regular episode. We just finished watching episodes 433 through 440, and Kat, we've decided through random coin toss which of us will be doing the succinct summary, and can you remind me who it was?
It's you.
It is me, okay.
It's always you.
It's always me.
The coin toss was in fact rigged.
Yeah, of course it was.
I cheat.
I was going to say, the moment that I flipped the coin, you shot me, and you said, you are going to do the succinct summary. But, that's not...
Robin, I will cause an explosion just to avoid accusations of cheating.
Absolutely. So Luffy and Mr. 3, they both have numbers as names. Luffy and Bonchan end up fighting one of the demon guards of Impel Down, the Minotaurus. It's a tough battle. Luffy uses Gear Second to knock it away, and then they descend down to the 4th floor, where they meet up with Buggy and Mr. 3 being chased by the Minotaur that Luffy launched their eye on accident. They work together to defeat the Minotaurus. They go down to level 4 proper, because I guess they were in some kind of like middle area, where Luffy now gets to fight Magellan, the warden of Impel Down, the eater of the venom fruit. Luffy tries his darndest. He ends up losing, unfortunately. He ends up getting so much poison in his bloodstream that there is no cure, there's no hope. He will be dead within 24 hours. But Bonchan believes in his friend, and using his clone fruit ability is able to sneak down into level 5, which is the Frozen Hell, and they try to find the miracle worker, Ivankov Emporio, who was a person who apparently went missing from the prison and can work miracles. They eventually discover Ivankov and his hidden paradise, level 5.5 of Impel Down. Ooh, very sneaky. They're hiding in between the floors. And it turns out that Emporio Ivankov, I'm just going to call him Ivankov from now on, ate the hormone fruit. He used those hormones in order to treat Luffy, and the procedure was going to take, I think, 3 days at minimum, and Ace is going to be executed in like a day and a half, so Luffy was unfortunately going to miss it. But Luffy miraculously recovers after just 10 hours. He eats the Paradise level 5.5 out of house and home, and he proudly declares that he's back at the end of these episodes. And that's been your succinct summary.
That was a fantastic succinct summary. Well done.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Did you like these episodes?
Yes, I like these episodes a lot. There's some powerful quotes. There's some good moments. I like that Buggy and Mr. 3 cannot help but be dragged further into hell even as they're trying to escape. I love that Mr. 2 tried to fight Hannibal, and he was like, wow, Hannibal's pretty strong. I'll rely on some other tactic. I'll use his horniness against him. I love how just over the top this Paradise level is, and that scene with Luffy in the surgery and Mr. 2 shouting, you can do it for 10 hours. That was incredible.
You know what I love, aside from the Magellan fight, which was so cool?
Yeah.
I love that Buggy and Mr. 3 were offered the chance to just leave. And they were too stupid. I mean, this was the one time they could have been smart when they were like, oh, it's a trap. Like, if it had been a trap, that would have been really clever of them. But it wasn't a trap. You guys literally could have just walked out. And they refused, and they tried to fight instead, and they got their butts kicked.
It's one of those situations where it's ironic for us, the viewers, because we've seen Hannibal telling, like, I'm going to let them escape on purpose because I'm a troublemaker. And so it is one of those things where it's like, it's very funny to see them be like, aha, we've outsmarted you. And then Hannibal is just like, you idiots. I can't believe that you didn't take the opportunity that I presented.
Mm-hmm.
We also got introduced to some new characters. And, some of the characters are really interesting and important and plotly relevant, but more important than that are the 4 demon guards underneath Sadie-chan. There's the Minotaurus, which is, from famous Greek mythology. It's a bull man, and it's ripped, by the way. It has like a 24-pack or an 18-pack. It's this like towering thing. It's super fast and super strong and has an iron club. But he also has siblings. He has the Mina Zebra, the Mino Koala, and the Mino Rhino. And they each have their own different personalities, so I think the koala is bashful, and the zebra is shy, and I don't remember what the rhino is, but yeah, so there's 4 of these things,
the
and they're very strong.
zebra is my favorite, I think.
And they have such long, flowing, beautiful pink hair.
Yeah, it reminds me of Fluttershy, actually. Like personality and the pink hair, I don't know. Which one was your favorite?
I really do like the joke with a koala. So I think the koala is kind of my favorite. So I think the koala is is probably my favorite. And the fact that it has like a sack of eucalyptus leaves or whatever that it munches on, and then it tries to offer it to the rhino, and the rhino's like, no. But they didn't get any play. They were just kind of shown and foreshadowed, and you can assume that they might do something later, but for now they're just kind of hanging by the door waiting for anyone trying to sneak into level 5 because, Luffy's goal is obviously to go deeper.
To go deeper. Let's talk, before we go deeper and we talk about what's down there, let's talk about that Magellan fight.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of different key components here to talk about. First off, Bon Chan tries to tell Luffy, you can't fight him. He can generate poison, and anytime you land a punch, you will get poisoned. We should run. So Bon Chan
he's
runs
got
from the fight.
The poison point ability from Pokemon. If you use a physical attack, you get poisoned.
Yes. Absolutely. And Luffy doesn't have any special type moves. He's pure physical. But so there's Bon Chan like running away and tearfully being like, I couldn't save you, I couldn't help. And that ends up being kind of why he fights so hard on the freezing hell in order to save Luffy, is because he feels he owes him a debt. And then there's Luffy fighting Magellan, and at first he's just trying to avoid Magellan's attacks, but then he looks down at himself. Let me see if I wrote down the quote. I'd rather not lose to you because I can't touch you. I won't let you execute Ace. I'll give you my arms. And that's at the very end of one of the episodes when he finally decides to attack. He unleashes a Gum Gum Bazooka directly into Magellan's stomach kind of area. He forces the warden down to his knees, and that's where the episode ends. Unfortunately, we find out that that wasn't enough to defeat him, and as the fight goes on, Luffy gets more and more injured, more and more poisoned, and he starts eventually being unable to even land a punch because he can't see, and eventually Magellan is just like, yeah, you're gonna die in 24 hours, man. Sucks for you, and kind of walks off. Little did Magellan know that Luffy is a shonen protagonist.
Cannot die.
Yeah, will not die. But, so what was your favorite aspect of this fight, do you think?
Honestly, my favorite part is that Luffy does not give up. Like, Bon Clay wanted to help. He wanted to jump in, but he just kept imagining all of the scenarios in which he might try to help, and he always came back to, no, I'm going to die. I have to just get away from here. And that, to me, is one of the amazing things about Luffy. Like, head empty. There are no thoughts there. He has to get to Ace. This is an obstacle in his way, so he's going to get through the obstacle.
Absolutely. Well, and you can compare Luffy to Buggy. One of them wants to go into Impel Down to save people. Buggy wants to escape to save himself. And so, in a way, it's an indictment on Buggy's character. He's a coward. Mr. 2 is not necessarily a coward. He has high spirits and he's there for his friend, but he does eventually give in to that natural fear of death. And in that way, he's a bit like Usopp, kind of. But Luffy is 100% belief, 100% I'll get through this somehow. He doesn't have a plan, but he'll do it. And that's also kind of how Luffy contrasts with Crocodile, who very much so tried to keep himself hidden while he was operating Baroque Works, who very much wanted to set himself up as the hero of Alabasta, who very much so looked down on other people who did rush into battle headlong without any kind of thoughts. And so, yeah. At the same time, that optimism did get Luffy into a tough spot, and look, he recovered through a miraculous thing, but I don't think he can get that level of poison again, because he doesn't have another 10 hours to spare. Ivankov said that the surgery took 10 years off of his life. Who knows how long Luffy's going to live naturally, but 10 less years kind of sucks. And so I don't think that Luffy's going to be able to run in without a clue what to do for round 2, if there is a round 2.
Absolutely. Rubber type is resistant to poison type. Luffy has been poisoned in the series before by Crocodile.
Okay,
with the poison
yeah.
hook. So there is that. Oh gosh, I lost track of my thoughts. I'm sorry.
Which do you think was a more devastating loss to Luffy? Luffy trying his hardest against Magellan and getting covered in poison, or Luffy being impaled by Crocodile back in Alabasta?
I want to say Magellan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I still think, we've talked before about how when the Straw Hats heard the sea only gets tougher from here, they kind of like waved it off.
Yep.
I still think Luffy is kind of like that. Like, he was told this was an impossible, impenetrable prison, and he was like, I'm going to do it anyway, though. And this is kind of a wake-up call for him.
Another wake-up call after the party wipe on Sabaody.
For real, though. And so I really think that Luffy needs to grow as a character and like find a way to get stronger, not just with his punches, because those aren't going to work against every opponent, but with his mind?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. And I know we usually try to hold off on our thoughts for the future, like predictions, until the end of the episode, but I almost wonder if the way that Luffy will beat Magellan, and again, I'm trying not to factor future knowledge into this, but I don't think Luffy on his own can beat Magellan. But what we have seen so far is that every level he goes to, he meets more and more people who end up joining on his side. He ended up kind of making Ivankov a fan of his through his actions and stuff, which we'll get into in a second. So I wonder if there's someone in the prison who might have the proper counter to Magellan's abilities, and Luffy will win by gathering allies rather than necessarily being the strongest.
I mean, if he's able to free Ace, could Ace just set Magellan on fire? That would make some fumes, probably.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Magellan's not made of poison. He produces poison.
Yes.
Okay. It was unclear, because at one point I thought somebody punched him and it, like, glooped through him.
Yeah, I think he has a physical body, but I think he can secrete poison from like anywhere on his body, so I think that when he goes into battle he just coats himself in it. But if he were a Logia and made of poison, I don't think he would get the stomach issues that he does get.
Yeah, that's true. Can I just really quick go back to that quote that you read about Luffy?
Yeah, it's a very powerful one, and I'm sorry to have skipped over it, even though it's so pivotal.
Gosh, Luffy is so cool. He's willing to sacrifice anything in order to do what he has to do.
For sure. Yeah, I've said before that One Piece is my favorite story of all time, and the classic comparison that a lot of people make is One Piece and Naruto and Bleach, because those were the big three at the time. And I think that Luffy has many badass moments that far surpasses the badass moments that I remember from Naruto. Bleach had some great ones from Ichigo, but there were other things that weighed it down. But you want your main character to sometimes have that unshakable confidence or the absolute power just push through. And so, like, him saying, I can sacrifice my arms if it means saving my brother, shows how far he's going to go, how dedicated he is, which would also be a callback to Shanks, who sacrificed his arm in the very first chapter of the manga in the 4th episode of the anime. And I almost wonder if Luffy is going to lose his arms later in the series, and this is one of those places where I'm, this might be foreshadowing for something that happens later. But luckily it looks like Luffy survived with both of his arms for now. For this
now.
Time.
Yeah. We'll see. Survived is a word. It's a strong word.
I mean, so, yeah, I think that about wraps up the fight. Is there anything else that...
No. So after the fight, Luffy is sent down to level 5.
Right, yeah, Bonchan pretends to be Hannibal. I keep getting them mixed up today. And Hannibal takes Buggy and Mr. 3 and Luffy, and he goes, we're going to take them down to level 5. And there's a really funny scene where the guards are like, Hannibal, sir, aren't you going to strip down to your underwear, your boxers? Because you do that every time. And Bonchan has to be like, yeah, of course. I'm Hannibal. That's what I always do. And so that's one way the clone fruit can work against you. It's a disadvantage.
Right. You don't know the expectations of the person you're pretending to be. They make it into the freezing hell and discover it is full of wolves.
Soldier wolves, specifically, which are so feral and so ferocious, they can't be put on the beast hell level 2 because they would eat all of the other beasts up there. Buggy and Mr. 3 immediately ditch Bonchan and the comatose Luffy. Bonchan's trying to fight off the wolves, but he's not having a very easy time of it. And Luffy briefly wakes up and he bites one of the wolves, which was hilarious.
Leave Bonchan alone!
Yeah, and he unleashes another one of those psychic blasts, which we now know is called Conqueror's Hockey from Amazon Lily, and makes all of the wolves pass out. Bonchan and Luffy are both collapsed. It looks like they're going to die, and out of the forest comes one of our new characters, Inazuma.
And Inazuma, when they walk out of the forest, are a man.
Yeah.
With like half white, half orange, and they've got cool glasses, and they're carrying a glass of wine.
Yes. They basically, like, Luffy is like on the verge of unconsciousness, but he basically is like, hey, can you save Bonchan? And this Inazuma person, who apparently goes around just looking for people to save, I guess, for the paradise that we're about to talk about, realizes that no one would normally in that situation, when they're on the verge of death, beg for the life of another person. And that moment of altruism is so powerful that Inazuma's like, cool, I'll take you to the boss, who is the aforementioned Ivankov. And that's when they get treated and all that stuff. So, cool.
Mm-hmm. Now, Bon Clay wakes up and discovers that he has found Ivankov, who he's been looking for this whole time.
Doesn't realize that's who it is, though. He wakes up and he's in some kind it's basically like a gay bar, like a rowdy, rambunctious, everyone's dressed up in pretty extravagant clothing, I would say, and there's beautiful women, but then there's also men that are, wearing like garter and stocking and stuff. Not typical wear for the One Piece universe type of thing. And there's a performer who has purple hair and is wearing a crown, is pretty giant compared to everyone else around them. Not giant, but probably 10 foot tall compared to the others.
Most of that is his head. Emporio Ivankov has, and I cannot stress this enough, an enormous head.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. He puts on a performance where he basically does this thing where he pretends and everyone always falls for it, but then he always goes, or not!
Hee-haw!
Hee-haw! At one point, someone bursts in. It's some random no-namer. We literally don't get a name for this character. And they go, my father was the king of a country, and he came to find you. And then he came back, and he was a woman. And everybody
laughed at us.
Yeah, and how I'm going to get my revenge. First off, dude fires a missile. Where did you get that missile in Impel Down? What the hell? Secondly, Ivankov launches it with a wink. His winks are so powerful, the shockwave sends the cannonball back at the dude who fired it. Third of all, he grows these, needle nails, stabs this guy, and he very slowly transforms into a woman over the course of 15 seconds.
It's like one of those Animorph covers.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine one of those, but the top is hunky man and the bottom is big booba woman, and the middle is some horrific in between. And it was weird too because I feel even as a woman, right? Even if this person were injected with the top shelf estrogen, they would still look they would still have their muscles, but it was very much like a Oda style woman, the giant boobs and the tiny waist. And
we watched some of these episodes on the Discord with some of our friends, and I made the comment to them that Oda says no muscular women, even though we already have Miss Friday. I can't remember who it was from Brookworks. Okay, Miss Monday. But yeah. So, Ivankov ate the hormone fruit. He's a hormone man. And you mentioned that when we met Inazuma, they presented male. But if you pay attention in the scene after Bonchan has woken up, Inazuma has breasts. So, Ivankov seems to have the ability, it's shown, Ivankov has the ability to transition someone from male to female. And
back again.
Yeah, and it's a pretty exaggerated transformation, right? As far as I know. And I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm positive that this is the case. You don't just take a pill and suddenly you have boobs. It's a long process that takes time, but in the fantasy world of One Piece, it's an instantaneous type of thing. These hormones can also be used for healing, which is how Luffy gets his emergency surgery, and who knows what other things it can do. I think that Ivankov said that they can control body temperature and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, and in an SBS, someone asked Oda something about Ivankov, and Oda replied that Ivankov can use head-enlarging hormones to make his head bigger so people can rent out space in his hair like a hotel, and he charges them more money if he walks past an ocean for the ocean view.
Okay, yeah. I have a lot of feelings about Ivankov, and yeah, I mean, once again, I think that we're kind of veering into territory that is a little bit bigger than kind of an anime discussion podcast, but I will say Oda did not make Ivankov completely scatterbrained or insane. So Well, I think that it's possible that some authors, if they wrote like this not weird, but this paradise in hell that had a bunch of people who, are trans or gay or cross-dressers, it seems like they have it takes all kinds in this paradise. I could see them doing kind of gross stereotypes or just being like, oh yes, all of these quote unquote women have giant beards and secretly just want to assault girls. And I don't get the impression that that is what Oda is going for. I do think that some of the characterizations could be a little extreme and a little bit uncomfortable, but in the end, Ivankov is more flamboyant than like Predator, for example. Mm-hmm. But I'm also incredibly uncomfortable with the fact that Ivankov forcefully transitioned that no-namer from a man to a woman.
Now, on one hand, yes, I am uncomfortable with that. It plays into some uncomfortable stereotypes. On the other hand, this guy was being transphobic against his mom.
That's true, yeah.
Who was formerly his dad. And Ivankov says, your dad wanted to be a woman. What's wrong with that? And so this almost seemed like a teaching him his lesson sort of thing. And maybe if the guy like apologized and decided to be less shitty, Ivankov would turn him back. Like nobody in One Piece has our morality. They all kind of do whatever they want.
That's certainly true.
And so I think from the morality of the universe, it wasn't the worst thing Ivankov could have done. And another line he said in that scene that I liked was, 2 mothers and 1 daughter. That's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
It very much is portrayed as a positive thing, especially since we're introduced to these characters and this paradise through Bon Clay's eyes. And this is like what Bon Clay was looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an interesting take on this whole thing. I understand how some people might be made uncomfortable, but again, the official stance of the podcast is trans rights, but that's not really what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the goofy anime. So let's talk about the emergency surgery that happened. Emporio Ivankov said something along the lines of, miracles only happen to those who don't give up, because essentially what happened is Ivankov gave Luffy these hormones, the drugs, the good stuff, locked Luffy in a room, and when Bonchan woke up, because I guess Luffy woke up first, Bonchan kind of like looks and he's like, oh my god, Luffy's dying, you have to save him, aren't you a miracle worker? And Ivankov is like, I'm not a miracle worker. People say that, but I've only enabled people to do what was possible for them. I think Ivankov even said that they've been to places where nations were destroyed or born or something like that. But miracles only happen to those who don't give up is the perfect representation of Luffy as a character. And the surgery is said that it only has like a 2 to 3% chance of working, but that's better than the 0% that Luffy had if he was untreated. And it's supposed to take, I can't remember, 2 to 3 days. Luffy gets over it in 10 hours. It's beautiful. And it's a really well done version of the hero is defeated but then is resurrected trope that you see in all media. Hell, we even had one earlier with Luffy versus Crocodile where he just ate some meat and got over being impaled in the chest. So this scene makes a lot more sense than that other scene that we already had.
Absolutely, no. And I love that Ivankov basically says this is Luffy's responsibility. He has to want to keep fighting. And Bon Clay says, okay, you know what? You're right. I'm not going to bother you anymore to save him. I'm going to go cheer him on to save himself. And Bon Clay is like half dead at this point himself. Like he should be resting, and all of the cheering, he's like screaming his throat bloody, and he inspires all of these people to come cheer for Luffy with him.
Mm-hmm. Would you look at that? The future king of the pirates being supported by all of these other people. No, I don't think that these people are all pirates. It doesn't seem, I mean, I guess they're all criminals. In jail, so. Yeah. There are criminals who aren't pirates, though. For example, the revolutionaries don't count as pirates, but they would be sent to Impel Down probably as well.
If you committed a murder, would you go to prison on your own island, or would you get sent to Impel Down? How many murders would you have to commit?
Yeah, exactly.
How many licks does it take to get to the center of an Impel Pop?
Oh my, okay. No, but it is a really interesting scene. You get that beautiful friendship between Bonchan and Luffy. Like I said, we watched these scenes with some other friends, and a lot of them were like, oh my gosh, it's Bonchan. I'm so happy to see Bonchan. Bonchan's the greatest. Bonchan is one of the GOATs of the series, one of the best. However, Yes, there are 3 goat men in One Piece.
Him
One
and
of them
Sengoku's
is
pet.
yeah. No, and Mary is the third one. There you go. No, but when Mr. 2 showed up in Alabasta, he was a weirdo, but not necessarily like a lot more or less so weirdo than like Mr. 3 or Mr. 4 or Mr. 5. And I didn't quite get the shtick. I felt the very first time I saw Mr. 2 that it was a little like, haha, we're making fun of a person who was born with a penis wearing makeup. That's so weird. And it's true that he became friends with Luffy and saved them from Hina after Alabasta. And so, you know, he was a good character. He ended up being like a good guy, a helper to an ally to Luffy. But I didn't appreciate how good their friendship was until Impel Down. This scene of him trying to save Luffy, him being sad that he was unable to save Luffy, that cements their friendship more so than him just saying that they were friends at the end of Alabasta. So, yes, Mr. 2 is one of my favorite characters of the series. I love the scenes with him, but it takes time for a character to develop that kind of feelings, right? Like if Zoro showed up in episode 3 and it's like, hey, Luffy, we're best friends, that's not enough. I need to see the scenes that kind of prove the strength of their relationship.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that about covers basically all of our different talking points, all of the major moments. We did have the introduction of one other character in these episodes who was not seen, but was mentioned. And I believe that they were talking to Mr. 2 about how Luffy's success in infiltrating Impel Down only went smoothly as it did, because Impel Down's not at full power. And they're kind of like, what are you talking about? It turns out that Magellan used to be the vice. No. Magellan has always been the warden, but a character named Shiryu of the Rain was the former jail manager of Impel Down, was seen as an equal to Magellan in terms of strength, and did not eat poison and was not inconvenient. So he was a more efficient Magellan.
And he liked to murder prisoners for fun. He was like, they're under our power, we can do what we want to them, which, yikes.
Yeah, it's interesting because you see a scene with Hannibal in the elevator with Hancock, and he's like, "Oh, listen to those screams of the prisoners! Isn't that wonderful?" So, and you have Sadie-chan, so like it's clear that Oda's trying to say that these guards revel in the pain that they cause other people. But I guess Shiryu of the Rain was so sadistic that Magellan was like, "Hold on now, are we the bad guys here?" And Shiryu's been stripped of his position, and so yeah. Oda doesn't typically mention characters by name unless they're going to be relevant later, and we're not done with the Impel Down arc, so maybe Shiryu will show up, but we did get a mention of his name.
Yeah, it seems pretty likely he's going to show up. He's got a name. So.
Other names that showed up that Ivankov mentioned. Here's another thing that we kind of learned. We assumed that Ace was on level 5. And it's actually really clever because if you pay attention, the people who tell Luffy that Ace is probably on 5, they don't actually say, we know he's on 5. They just say, we think 5 is the deepest level. There's a shot that of when all the different Impel Down guards are going down in the elevator, it shows the view of the tower, and technically it doesn't show where they're going, it just shows them descending, and it shows level 5 as the bottom level on the diagram, but you can kind of see that maybe there's a little bit something further down on the diagram. So level 5 is the frozen hell with the wolves and people freezing to death. Level 5.5, the unofficial level of the rebellion or whatever, the paradise. But then level 6 is the isolation hell. That's where Jinbei is, that's where Crocodile is, that's where Ace is. This level is for the worst criminals in history. And Ivankov rattles off a couple of other names. I don't have them all in front of me, but I think that it's like Catalina Devon, who's like the world's most dangerous woman. And there's like someone named Vasco Shot. And there's just a bunch of names that are kind of thrown out, and it seems pretty random, but maybe if Luffy's gonna go and rescue his brother down there, maybe these characters will show up. Maybe you'll meet like the smooth-talking devil on the shoulder, you know, like, hey, buddy, let me out. Hey, I'll help you fight Magellan. Hey, but actually they're going to do a murder, you know?
Yeah, could be.
One last quick note that I forgot to mention. I meant to mention it last week, but Mr. 2 and Frankie in the Japanese have the same Seiyu, the same voice actor. That's a pretty flamboyant voice actor, especially when they're acting as Mr. 2. I wonder if they get typecast in those kind of roles, but it's pretty obvious when you go from Sabaody hearing Frankie, and then you go to Impel Down and you hear Mr. 2. Apparently, also, I didn't hear this one myself, but Audrey, friend of the podcast, mentioned it, that Soldeath, the tiny imp man who is head of the Blue Gories, has the same voice actor as Zoro in the Japanese. So that's pretty interesting. If you're a Zoro voice actor stan, Seiyu stan, maybe you would recognize it. I didn't catch that one quite as much, but...
I didn't catch it either, but that's cool. It always makes me wonder when, like, there's the same Japanese voice actor for a for a character, if there is also, like, they keep the same English voice actor for characters who share.
I'm fairly certain that's not true of Frankie and Mr. 2, but I'm not sure. And Zoro's Christopher Sabat, right? So he would be pretty recognizable as Soldeath.
We give thanks and praise to Christopher Sabat. It's right to give thanks and praise. We met him at SoccerCon, and he was so nice, and he signed our One Piece DVD.
Yes.
It was a good time. Somebody asked him to sign he voices Vegeta, right?
Yes.
So somebody brought a Goku Funko Pop, and they were like, can you sign this? And they obviously wanted him to, like, do stuff to it, but he defaced the Goku face and then, like, signed it as Vegeta as well as himself. Yes. So that was pretty good.
That's wonderful. He seems like a pretty great guy. As far as I know, there's no, like, allegations or anything of, like, a darker side or anything like that. So I got one last discussion question before we go into thoughts from the crew. If Luffy still had his crew and he was fighting a guy like Magellan, do you think any of them would be particularly well suited to fighting him?
Zoro, Nami, or Usopp could all fight him.
Okay.
Nami and Usopp because they are long-range fighters and they wouldn't have to get close to him. Mm. Zoro because he's got swords, and I don't think swords can be poisoned unless One Piece is using the poison can also be acid rule, in which case maybe it could eat through his swords.
Yeah.
But any of those three, I think, could do something. Robin couldn't, because her thing is all about touching. Mm-hmm. Frankie could shoot a cannon at him.
Well, and so Frankie could still get the poison in his mouth or something like that. I don't know why he would be shouting, but maybe Magellan knows to wait for the exact moment that the pervert shouts something in order to, like, fire a bullet or something.
I don't know why he would be shouting. Joel says about Frankie, character most likely to shout.
Well, I know, but, like, not in the middle of a battle. Not just like, ah! But, you know, so he still breathes, and his back is still organic, but he would fare relatively well, I guess, on the front half when he was hit with poison, but...
Assuming that the poison is not acid.
That's true, yes. If Magellan could create acid, it's all over.
But Chopper couldn't do anything either, and I can't... Brook could maybe do sound wave stuff?
Maybe. Yeah, so I think that the best matchup would probably be Usopp and Nami tag teaming from a distance, Chopper using, like, scope or whatever it is to come up with, like, a detailed strategy. And then maybe Frankie could build some kind of, like, antidote delivery system or something.
Oh, man, too bad Luffy doesn't have any of those people.
Yeah, so
he's gonna have to make do with Buggy and Mr. 3.
Buggy, Mr. 3, Mr. 2, and potentially Mr. 1. We saw him in these episodes. He was on level 4, but didn't in any way interact with the plot. The camera just kind of showed that he was there.
He's vibing. Maybe that was foreshadowing. Do you remember when we used to ask Curtis, like, do you think there was any foreshadowing in these episodes?
Absolutely.
It's great because if we were still asking that question, yes, there absolutely is, but I can't say what it is because I have foreknowledge.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mr. 1 never had a personality, really. He seemed to basically just be a hired muscle. He would do whatever he was told to do. No job was too difficult. So I can't really see, like, why he would team up with Luffy, and I can't see how his abilities would be especially useful
against Magellan, particularly.
Yeah, like, that's the opponent that we're most worried about right now, and I don't know.
Now, I will say, I'm looking at my cell phone here, and my background is Mr. 1 lighting Crocodile's cigarette. And I gotta say, his personality is that he's married to Crocodile.
Yes, okay. So do you think seeing Mr. One is a nod to like Oda being like, so by the way, Luffy's going to have to try to recruit Crocodile.
It could be, yeah. Or maybe Mr. One will be like, people are messing around in the prison. Now's my chance to go get the boss.
Oh, so Luffy's like, Crocodile, you're a bastard. Stay in that cell, you stinky man. And then as he's walking away, Mr. One walks in. I'm here to free the boss.
He says it like that.
Yeah, of course he does.
In English, even though we are watching the Japanese.
Yes, absolutely. So just to end off really quick, thoughts from the crew. Like I said, we were in Discord. There were a lot of messages. I'm not going to read them all or whatever, but Jin, another friend of the podcast, pointed out that he really liked the POV at the end when Luffy was undergoing his surgery.
When he's all chained up.
Yeah, the chains are bigger than Luffy, holding him down. It shows the struggle visually, which is a perfect metaphor. I also appreciate that after he's done, like it gets quiet and everyone's like, oh no, did Luffy succumb to the illness? And then you hear, boom! Everyone's like, what the heck? Boom, boom! It's Luffy, he's awake, and he wants food.
You better feed him,
you better
mothers.
Feed the monster. They don't even show Luffy's body. Like, so there's a scene of Bonchan opening like a little peephole and looking in, being like, oh god, what's happening to him? You get like a shadowed shot that like Jin had mentioned with like chains and stuff. But then when he gets quiet, you see what I assume is blood coming
like
out from
oozing
underneath the door. And even after they're opening the door and feeding him food, you still can't see him. I've always kind of headcanoned it that like his body is at least partially like decomposing and then rebuilding itself. Like that's what the Emporio hormones are, and that's why it's such a dangerous treatment. And as he eats, he's basically bulking out again.
There was a really gross visual of him where he was all like emaciated on top, but all distended on the bottom from all the food he
It was a bloodborne monster, essentially. Yes.
It was pretty horrifying, yeah, but he worked it out. So.
I do really like the hero's triumphant return is always such a good shot if you can do it well. And him, demanding food as the the music starts playing, and then he comes out and he looks all weird, but then he slowly regains like the color and vitality in each of his limbs one by one, and then he shouts, "I'm back!" That is, One Piece continues to be the greatest of all time. That was a wonderful shot.
Absolutely.
And that has been your doot final thought. Outro goes here.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Next episode, we'll be covering episodes 441 through 446. Thanks so much and have a great day. Ha-ha! What a great episode of King of the What Now, your One Piece podcast that started from the very beginning and stars these two doofuses. If you want to follow us on social media, Twitter's the best place to do that. I am at KOTWN_pod.
And I am at Pirate Ghost Host.
Absolutely, yes. We share all sorts of thoughts on there, some related to the podcast, some related to other things. But you can also reach us through email at kingofthewhatpod@gmail.com, or you can also find us on Patreon. We would love some subscribers or supporters, whatever the technical term is. Patrons. So fancy and grown up. And you can find that at patreon.com/kingofthewhatpod. You can find all sorts of things like bonus episodes, and you get to see the full cold open candidates, not just the ones that make it into the episode. Maybe someday if I learn to draw, I'll put stuff up there. We're always looking for suggestions and feedback. And speaking of which,
please take a moment to rate and review our podcast wherever you get us from. So iTunes, Spotify, Scrivener, that's for writing. But wherever you listen to our podcast, take a moment to leave a review. It helps other people find us. We are so grateful to all of our listeners, and we couldn't do this without you.
Absolutely. Word of mouth is super powerful, so if you have a friend who likes One Piece and they haven't heard of us, just direct them to the latest episode. And if they hate us, they can tell us why. And if there's an actionable item, we'll try to please you. That's how this works. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.